So the last week really has been, for the Americans anyway, about oil. Isn't it rather old-fashioned, isn't it rather last century to be so obsessed with the black gold?
Yeah, thanks. It's good to be with you. And absolutely, at a time when we are seeing the devastating consequences of climate change, of the warming of the planet, to be doubling down in fossil fuels, which are the source of that warming, is is obviously taking us in exactly the opposite direction of the direction we need to be moving. It was all telegraphed in Project 2025, which was this Republican plan that they plan to implement if Donald Trump won the presidency. It was essentially a plan to turn the United States essentially into a petrostate. Our policies are dictated by fossil fuel interests and petrostates like Saudi Arabia and Russia, with which the Trump administration is essentially collaborating in their effort to take us further down this road.
Now, I know you're a scientist and not a politician, but on the specific issue of these tankers being seized, and they were supposedly part of the shadow fleet that was busting the sanctions on oil. I mean, this is necessary, one could argue, from a strategic point of view, because it is that oil, whether you like oil or not, that is fueling Russia's war machine.
Yeah, well, it's actually a pretty small amount of oil when you look at what we're talking about here, 30 to 50 million barrels of oil. The United States consumes that in a matter of 2 or 3 days. And so the real problem here is this effort to essentially control the much larger oil reserves that Venezuela has, as much as 300 billion barrels of oil. Obviously, that continues to take us in the direction of more fossil fuel infrastructure, more warming of the planet at a time when obviously we need to be replacing fossil fuel energy with renewable energy.
And of course, there's a link here between, carbon fuels and what's happening in terms of climate change, especially in Greenland and the Arctic ice cap, because that seems to be melting. That has completely changed the strategic game play around Greenland and so on. So tell us about the interplay of oil and, the melting ice caps and what the consequences of that might be.
Yeah, there's some perverse irony here, isn't there, when it comes to this idea that we need to have access to rare minerals and fossil fuel reserves contained in the continent of Greenland, and indeed the warming of the planet that is caused by our continued use of fossil fuels is melting the Greenland ice sheet ahead of schedule. It's melting faster than we expected. It's contributing to sea level rise faster than we expected. And the cost of those impacts of climate change dwarfs the amount of profit that we're talking about here with these fossil fuel resources. And so the cost of inaction, the devastation that is being done to all of us is far greater than any benefit, any economic benefit we might get from the continued use of those reserves.
Now, in history, the pursuit of minerals, the pursuit of natural resources has often been a prime source of instability. Is that what you're seeing right now in the kind of hunt for rare earth metals and indeed for oil?
Yeah, I mean, there's a linkage between sort of extractive economies, countries that have an extractive economy, that have a fossil fuel economy, a petrostate-driven economy. There is a linkage between petrostates and authoritarian regimes. Russia, Saudi Arabia, obviously, are authoritarian regimes, and currently the United States, under Trump and a Republican Congress, is an authoritarian regime whose policies are dictated by the profits of large fossil fuel companies and their collaboration with other petrostates like Russia and Saudi Arabia. And much of the instability, much of the conflict we see right now is a result of that very activity.
Right. Okay, got to leave it there. Professor Michael Mann, thank you very much indeed. Kathy.